Welcome to Miss Stories in Crime. I'm your host, Melissa Thompson. Today, I want to discuss with you Gabby Petito's parents and step-parents went on Dr. Phil to speak about Gabby's case and what they think of Brian and his parents. Now, they gave quite a bit of information, and a lot of it, I believe, is very important to this case. So let's get into it. Okay, first of all, they talked about Joe, who is Gabby's biological father, is married to Tara. And Tara has been in Gabby's life since she was 1 year old. Nicole, Gabby's biological mother, is married to Jim, and he has been in Gabby's life since she was 2 years old. They have also mentioned that Gabby didn't just have two parents, she had four. And I think that's just a beautiful story, a beautiful way of the two parents, the biological parents, separated, but they came together as four people. Gabby had four parents that loved her and cherished her. So Jim went to Wyoming, where Gabby was last seen. Nicole and Tara stayed in Long Island, and Joe went to Florida. And we know he went to Brian Laundrie's parents' home, and there was some kind of situation where the Laundries called the police on Joe Petito, which, who do they not call the police on these people? I mean, I'm waiting for the day that I see these people hauled off in handcuffs, but I digress. So they talk about Jim getting a call from the FBI saying that they had found remains. They gave him some specifics about clothing and some other identifying markers that he didn't go into. They specifically talked about that there was a sweatshirt that the body was wearing. And the Jim, when he heard about it, he was on a conference call with Joe, Nicole, and Tara when he was in the hotel with the FBI. It was a sweatshirt that the lawyer said she got locally in the Grand Tetons, and it was her favorite sweatshirt. She was found in that. So that was confirmed by Jim, the lawyer, and her other parents. Now, Gabby's mother, Nicole, said that the night of September 11th of 2021, the police detective came to her door in Long Island, and she was told that Gabby's van was in Florida, but Gabby was not. She said she immediately had a mother's instinct that her daughter was no longer with them. So before she even found out, truthfully, what had happened to her daughter, she knew deep down inside. And as a mom, I can tell you that's absolutely 100% correct. I, too, have lost a child. My daughter would have been 23 this year. She reminds me a lot of Gabby. My daughter was also an artist, and she had blue eyes, and people tended to gravitate towards her because she just had this wonderful personality that she cared about people. She would give the shirt off her back, and I believe that's how Gabby was. Okay, so Joe talks about, Gabby and the way she was and how she loved art. And one thing that really touched me was Gabby's mom and her stepdad, Jim, bought her a tattoo machine because she loved tattoos and art. And she gave her brother for his 18th, or his high school graduation, she gave him a tattoo of her art on his leg. They said that, her parents. And now, forever, he holds the last piece of art that Gabby ever made. And that is such a gift, because when you lose somebody, you want everything they last touched. You know, I still have my daughter's pillow that I'll curl up with, and I still smell her, and like her perfume and all those things, they mean something to you. Now, Gabby's parents talked about how they believe Brian is hiding. They all believe that he's a coward. And I 100% agree with this. Now, Joe said, and I love Joe because he just states his mind how it is. I live very close to Long Island, and I feel for these people. He said that all of the people that live in that house in Florida, that lived in there, they're all cowards. And I absolutely 100% agree. Now, they also talked about how they kept all trying to contact the Laundrie family to find out what was going on. And they believed in the beginning, before they found out that Brian returned to Florida without Gabby, that they were both missing. So in the beginning, Gabby's family was worried about both of them. They were worried something happened. But then all they got were their voicemails. And they would try to text, no response whatsoever. I mean, it's absolutely disgusting, these people are. I mean, Joe talks about his kids, and he said, I raised my kids that when they do something wrong, you need to stand up for yourself and admit your wrongdoings. You cannot go run off and hide like these parents have taught Brian to do. I mean, it's despicable what these people did. So when the law enforcement came to the Laundrie home, Gabby's parents said that the police didn't even see Brian. The parents gave them sheets of paper to just contact their lawyer in Long Island. So I don't know if actually law enforcement ever actually laid eyes on Brian. Now, the family also talked about on Dr. Phil how, of course, we know about the hiker claiming to see Brian on the Appalachian Trail. Her parents have said that he was very comfortable with the Appalachian Trail, and we found out that him and Gabby had taken several trips to the Appalachian Trail, and that he used to brag to her family what a survivalist he is, that he could make it, in the outdoors. Like, he seemed to want to be away from people. I believe people made him uncomfortable. And I'll bet that Gabby's father and her stepfather made him extremely uncomfortable. Because if you have somebody that's intimidating, and I believe both those men have a very strong presence and a protective presence about them, I bet that Brian couldn't stand to be around them, which is why it's one of the reasons he isolated Gabby from her friends and family and the life that she knew, because he was a domineering personality. And with DV, the first thing you do is you separate them from all their loved ones so that they can only depend on you. Now, Gabby's family also spoke about how they got their tattoos, and it was actually Gabby's art that she drew, and they all have, a part of her, and they did this together, which is really, really incredible and beautiful. And to think about Gabby's phrase, let it be. I mean, she just wanted to be out in the world and see all the beauty in it. And she's stuck with this jerk of a guy who was so jealous of her. He was jealous of the fact that she knew what she wanted out of life and she could achieve it. Her father spoke about how people just wanted to be near Gabby. And you can see that through her pictures. Just looking at her Instagram and seeing how she would word things and put her emojis out, you could see that this family raised this girl right. I mean, she was just a beautiful person inside and out. And I just hate the fact that this guy, he wanted to destroy that because he didn't know what he wanted in life. And she said to the police, he doesn't believe that I can accomplish this. Now, her father said in the Dr. Phil interview that Gabby had planned this road trip for over a year and a half. And they spoke about how she was an adult who could make her own decisions, which is absolutely true. I mean, you raise your children, but there comes a point where when they're an adult, you can advise, like Dr. Phil said, but in the end, they make their own decisions. And Gabby seemed as though she had a plan. She knew what she was going after. And she thought that she had a partner on this ride with her to this journey of making it in the van life and having her YouTube channel and having her website. But this guy wanted to destroy that. He wanted to destroy her. They're known for knocking people down and taking their self-worth away from them. So, hearing her parents speak about how they don't want to go down that road of whether they should have told her to not take that trip, they're absolutely right. You can't go down that road because once you do, you can't get out of that rabbit hole. Losing a child, you constantly want to go back in time. I feel that a lot. And when I go to that place, it's very hard to crawl out of. I mean, her mother said how angry she feels. She feels angry that Brian is out on the run hiding. They all believe that he is hiding somewhere. And they do believe he could be on the Appalachian Trail. And they want hikers and everybody that lives in the area of where, there's a good hiking trail or a place to hide out in the woods. They want you to keep looking at cameras. It was Red, White, and Bethune, their travels, their GoPro cam footage that helped find Gabby Petito. It was them that helped. Jim admitted that in the interview on Dr. Phil. He said social media absolutely made a huge presence and help in this case. Now, Joe said something very, very interesting, and again, I was agreeing with Joe. I had a dad, my dad passed away, but my dad was like Joe. Very protective of me. He would have wanted to fight justice, to get justice for me if this was happening, that had happened to me. He said that when Gabby went missing, all four of her parents did everything they could. They used every tool to help find Gabby. He said, what did they do to find their son, Brian? If they're so concerned about his well-being and concerned about his hurting himself, why aren't they on TV or go outside your door and talk to the reporters and plead for your son's return? But no, they gave him a head start. And Dr. Phil and the parents all agree that there's two reasons why they won't go plea for their son. One, they know where he is. Or two, they don't want him to be found. And I think both of those reasons are very clear possibilities. I do believe Brian is out there. I agree 100% that he is a coward, and he's too much of a coward to self-harm, honestly. I know a lot of people think that that's the coward's way out, and it can be. But, he's narcissistic. He has a narcissistic personality, and I believe he has other mental illnesses that have not been diagnosed. I told you, he definitely has demons in him. So her parents said that they don't like to think about her going on that trip and them having regrets about her going on that trip, because you don't want to go down that rabbit hole and be stuck there, because it's a hard way to climb yourself out of it. What they want to do is focus on the beauty that Gabby left on this planet, because she was here and she touched things that were here. She lived out in nature, and seeing the pictures of her growing up, from the funeral footage, she loved adventure. She loved art. She loved people. And that's what the parents want to take away from this situation. They do want answers. Yes, there is no closure without answers. And thank God that Red, White, and Bethune was driving down that road and was filming, and then they decided to go back and look at the footage, because that's when they spotted the van. Because otherwise, these parents would still not know where Gabby is. And to not know, to be stuck in limbo, that's a horrible place to be. That is hell on earth, if you ask me, to be in limbo. So to at least have her body and eventually get some more answers as to what happened to her, that will help. But they need Brian Laundrie to turn himself in. And they do ask that on Dr. Phil. Dr. Phil also put out a plea for Brian and Brian's parents to say something and do the right thing. He did something bad in Wyoming, and the Petito's family lawyers said that he confirmed that Brian used her van and her credit cards to get himself home and spent over $1,000. So that's confirmed. We all thought it, but the lawyers said it in this episode. So Brian, I know somehow you were getting information from a family friend, from a distant relative. We know Mom brought you to the AT&T store and bought you a burner phone. We don't even know how many you have, but you were getting information somewhere. The Laundrie parents are getting information. There are protesters and newscasters outside your door every single day. Get off your butts, go out the door, and tell your son to turn himself in. That's the last decent thing that he can do for this family, because they need to know what happened. They admitted that. They need to know the story. It's one thing to know how someone died, but you need to know the story as to how it happened. And in this case, this is a homicide. They need the answers so they can keep grieving and move through the stages of grief. And this family is not letting them do that. I don't know how they had Gabby living in their house for 2 years. And the only thing that the parents could say was R.I.P. Gabby. I mean, seriously? You don't care about another human being? You don't care about the girl that was going to be your daughter-in-law, your son's wife that was going to raise your grandchildren? Get out there and tell us what you know. Tell us what you know. Because otherwise, you're going to be hauled off in handcuffs, and there is going to be a ton of people clapping. You owe this to this family. This family is good and beautiful, and you are getting away with murder. That's all I have for you today, guys. I hope you are all well. Please stay safe. Have a beautiful week, and I will see you very soon. Take care, you guys.